Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to translate corporate jargon into plain English and let you know what really matters right now. It's time to dig into Millennium Group International Holdings Limited's latest annual report, a document that for all its legalese secretly tells a story about a company navigating some pretty choppy economic waters. So buckle up because we are about to decode it. So what is Millennium Group International Holdings Limited all about? Well, they are a paper-based packaging solutions supplier with operations in China and Vietnam, and they have been around since 1978. They say they offer a one-stop integrated service covering the entire value chain for paper-based packaging, and that sounds fancy, but basically it means they handle everything from design and raw materials to the final product delivery. A key part of their strategy is to offer a comprehensive printing and packaging solution for their customers, aiming for both efficiency and flexibility. Let us dive straight into the numbers because ultimately that is where the real story lies. Looking at their balance sheet for the 30th of June 2025 and 2024, we see some significant shifts. Their total assets dropped from over $43 million in 2024 to about $36 million in 2025. A big chunk of this decrease comes from cash and cash equivalents, which fell from $13.3 million to just over $10.6 million. Inventories also saw a sharp decline from $3.7 million to $1.5 million. Indicating they are holding less stock, likely a move to reduce costs or perhaps a reflection of lower demand. On the liability side, accounts payable remained relatively stable, but other payables and accrued liabilities also saw a significant drop. Bank borrowings, however, increased slightly from $5.5 million to $6.1 million, suggesting they are relying more on debt. What does this mean? Well, a lower asset base and reduced cash could point to tighter financial conditions or a strategic shift in how they manage their resources. But that increase in borrowing is something to keep an eye on. Now let us look at how they performed financially over the last few years. For the year ended the 30th of June 2025, their total revenue was about $25.3 million, a noticeable drop from $38.5 million in 2024. This is a nearly 35% decrease, which is substantial. The cost of revenues also decreased, but not as much, meaning their gross profit took a hit, falling from $8.3 million in 2024 to $4.6 million in 2025. This translates to a lower gross profit margin from 21.6% to 18.5%. Selling and marketing expenses and general and administrative expenses did decrease in 2025 compared to 2024, which is a positive sign of cost control, but it was not enough to offset the revenue drop. The company reported a net loss of $6.3 million in 2025, a significant increase from the $8.7 million loss in 2024. This indicates that despite cost-cutting efforts, the business is facing increased challenges. Looking at revenue by product category, packaging products revenue dropped from $22.3 million in 2024 to $15.7 million in 2025. Corrugated products revenue also saw a sharp decline from $11.8 million to $5.1 million. The packaging product supply chain management solutions revenue remained relatively stable. This shows that their core product sales are under pressure. They attribute this decline to a decrease in sales volume while attempting to focus on higher quality customers, and partially offset by an increase in average selling price. This strategy of increasing prices to compensate for lower volume is often a sign of financial stress. Back in 2023, their revenue was $45.5 million, so the trend has been a significant downturn. This suggests that either the market is shrinking for their products or they are losing market share. The cost of revenues decreased as expected with lower sales, but they also mentioned rising raw paper costs from $489 per ton to $544 per ton, reflecting a 11% increase. This rise in raw material costs, when coupled with lower sales volume, really squeezes their profitability margins. Their gross profit margin for packaging products fell from 33.4% in 2024 to 19.8% in 2025. This is a massive drop, and it is likely due to a combination of lower sales prices for some products to facilitate the consolidation of operations and rising raw material costs. While corrugated products saw a dip into negative margins briefly in 2024, likely due to the operational changes they are making, it is still a worrying sign. Selling and marketing expenses decreased in 2025, largely because of reduced consulting fees and sales commissions. This is a direct action taken to cut costs in light of the revenue decline. General and administrative expenses also decreased, mainly due to staff reductions and cost control measures following the winding down of a subsidiary. These are necessary steps to manage the company's financial health given the current situation. The net loss in 2025 was $6.3 million, which is an improvement from the $8.7 million loss in 2024, but still a significant loss. The company is clearly in a difficult financial period, but they are making efforts to try and stem the bleeding by cutting expenses. Their cash flow from operating activities shows a continued drain. In 2025, they used $1.7 million of cash from operations, which follows a $4.1 million cash burn in 2024. The good news is that in 2023, they actually generated $8.1 million. This is a turnaround to negative cash flow from operations, which is a red flag. They explain this by citing lower net income and changes in working capital like increased accounts receivable and inventories, although inventories seem to have been reduced, which is a positive movement despite the overall negative trend. Investing activities show they spent $1.5 million in 2025 on property, plant and equipment and intangible assets. This is less than the $2.2 million spent in 2024, but it indicates they are still investing in their infrastructure, which could be for future growth or general maintenance. Financing activities show a more complex picture. In 2025, they actually provided a small amount of cash through financing activities, about $559,000. This was driven by taking on new bank loans of $11.5 million, which more than offset the $10.9 million in loan repayments. This is a strategy to access more capital, likely to manage operational shortfalls or fund ongoing investments. In 2024, they used almost $8 million in financing activities, mainly due to loan repayments exceeding new borrowings. It is important to note their IPO in April 2023 raised about $4.2 million in net proceeds. Now, a very important part of any company operating in China is understanding the regulatory landscape. This filing details numerous risks associated with doing business in China, including compliance with new cybersecurity review measures and overseas listing regulations. The company highlights uncertainties in how these laws will be interpreted and enforced, and the potential for significant sanctions if they fail to comply. This is a constant challenge for Chinese companies listed internationally, and it adds a layer of risk to their operations and future fundraising efforts. The company's inventories have reduced significantly from $3.7 million in 2024 to $1.5 million in 2025. And they mention a considerable amount of inventory impairment. This suggests they are working to clear out old stock which may be outdated or no longer in demand. While reducing inventory can be good for cash flow, a large impairment points to potential obsolescence issues and poor inventory management in the past. A significant recent development has been their decision to wind down the operations of Yewu Paper Industry, which is called YWSCs. They decided to consolidate part of its operations into another subsidiary called MPZ. This voluntary liquidation process is ongoing, and it signifies a strategic shift potentially to streamline operations and cut costs in response to business performance declines. This restructuring and the associated costs are likely impacting their financial performance. Looking at leadership, Minghang Matthew Lai is the chairman and director, and he and his family collectively own a significant stake in the company, about 88.89% of the ordinary shares. This concentration of ownership gives them substantial control over the company's direction, which can be positive for stability, but also means minority shareholders have less influence. Overall, the financial picture for Millennium Group International Holdings Limited is challenging. Revenues are down significantly, profits are down, and they are experiencing negative cash flow from operations. While they are making efforts to control costs by reducing expenses and inventory, the market conditions and rising raw material costs are posing serious threats. The company is also managing considerable regulatory risks given its operations in China. The increase in bank borrowings to fund their operations and continued investments in property, plant, and equipment suggests they are trying to weather the storm. However, the drop in revenue and gross profit margin demands careful attention. We saw a revenue of $25.3 million in 2025, down considerably from $45.5 million in 2023. This revenue decline is the most pressing concern. So, what is my take on this? Millennium Group International Holdings Limited is in a tough spot. Their core business is facing significant headwinds, and their financial performance is reflecting that. The cost-cutting measures are necessary, but the revenue decline is a major indicator of broader market struggles or competitive pressures. Their reliance on a few major customers adds another layer of risk if those relationships falter. The increased borrowing and continued capital expenditures, while potentially strategic, also signal a need for capital to maintain operations and perhaps bridge financing gaps. The company is clearly undergoing a strategic adjustment with restructuring and cost control, but the path to profitability will be challenging. What do you think about Millennium Group's latest filing and their future prospects? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more corporate investigations. And hey, if you want to dive deeper and connect with fellow corporate sleuths, join our Discord community, linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next episode of Corporate Decoder.